Picture this, as it's a scene familiar to every PC builder. Your digital shopping cart is full. The CPU's chosen, the motherboard's ready, the RAM is waiting. But your cursor hovers, frozen over the most expensive and crucial component. A brand new RTX 50 series GPU. This is the single most agonizing decision in high-end PC building. Do you pull the trigger on the powerful graphics card available today, or do you slam on the brakes, pause the entire build, and wait for the shadow that looms over every NVIDIA cycle, the inevitable super refresh? Right now, with the RTX 50 Super Series on the horizon, that question has never been more relevant, and the stakes have frankly never been higher. For the enthusiast community, the term super has evolved from a simple product name into a powerful market warning. It's somewhat of a ticking clock, signaling that NVIDIA is preparing to strategically reset the entire value proposition of their current product stack. For early adopters of the 50 series, it often feels like a punishment, leaving them with a deep and bitter sense of buyer's remorse. So today, we're going to unpack everything that we know, and even what we don't know, about the Super Series, and whether you should buy a card now or wait for something that could be better, and in terms of value, cheaper. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
This sucks. I wish I had an upgrade.
You have summoned the gaming genie.
What is your wish? Better gear? For an upgrade?
Your wish is my command. Zone Elite XL Matte, smooth, comfortable, spill resistant, and the sleek Zone Mat for precision gaming. NZXT Function Elite Mini TKL, magnetic switches, compact and precise. Featuring per-key adjustable actuation with 40 points of sensitivity ranging from 0.6mm to 4mm to fit your individual needs. Lift Elite wireless mouse, lightweight, responsive and ultra fast. Capsule Elite mic, pro quality audio, crystal clear, every game chat will be flawless. Genie approved upgrades. Make your gaming wishes come true with NZXT. Find out more by clicking the link in the description below. Now, to understand what's almost certainly coming, we first need to understand NVIDIA's playbook, because this isn't just a product release. It's a carefully executed two-act play. I mean, let's take a look back at the masterclass in market recalibration that they pulled with their last generation, the RTX 40 series. At its core, a supercard is the version of the GPU that NVIDIA could have released in the first place. This strategy is rooted in both clever marketing and the physical realities of manufacturing silicon. When a new generation of chips is made, the production process isn't perfect. Through a process called binning, they sort the manufactured GPU dies. The flawless ones are reserved for the flagship cards. The vast majority, however, have tiny imperfections or simply of a quality that doesn't meet the highest standard. So NVIDIA disables sections of these perfectly good chips to create the distinct product tiers like the 5060, 5070 and 5080. The super refresh happens months later, once the manufacturing process has matured. Yields of high-quality chips have improved, and NVIDIA has a surplus of more capable silicon. They can then flip the switch on many of those previously disabled sections, creating a more powerful GPU on the exact same architecture, which you effectively get for free, if you just wait. This approach also serves as a powerful psychological tool. The high launch prices of the non-supercards set a price anchor in the market. And then when the supercards arrive later with more performance for the same or even less money, they seem like an incredible bargain by comparison, driving a huge second wave of sales. The RTX 40 series refresh is, I guess, the only case study that you need to actually see this in action. I mean, remember the RTX 4080. It launched at a somewhat controversial $1,199. Then came the RTX 4080 Super at just $999. NVIDIA didn't just cut the price, they delivered a faster card with more cores and faster memory for $200 less than the original launch MSRP. This wasn't a sale, it was a fundamental market correction that left anyone who bought a 4080 early feeling a little burned. The value shift was even more stark with the RTX 4070 Super. It launched at the very same $599 MSRP as the original RTX 4070, but arrived with a massive 22% increase in CUDA cores. This translated to a real-world 15% average performance uplift in games, effectively turning it into what many felt the 4070 Ti should have been. For the exact same launch price, you got a card that was a full tier better, instantly making the original 4070 one of the worst value propositions in their stack. Now, this isn't a new strategy, and it isn't always just about core counts. I mean, the original RTX 2060 Super not only added cores, but critically upgraded the VRAM from a restrictive 6GB to a much more comfortable 8GB, addressing the biggest longevity complaint of the original card. The historical pattern is undeniable. Super cards offer a compelling 5 to 15% performance uplift and often fix the most criticised aspect of the original, be it price, performance, or VRAM, all while recalibrating the performance per dollar in the consumer's favour. It's the product unshackled from the initial launch day early adopter tax, which at this point feels less like a tax and more like a planned entrance fee for the first act of Nvidia's show. The economic argument for waiting on the Super Series is strong, but the technical argument, specifically around the VRAM on the current RTX 50 series cards, is the most critical factor for future-proofing your expensive new rig. So why has VRAM suddenly become the battlefield for GPU longevity? Well, it's quite a simple one. The answer lies in the technology powering the new wave of games, especially those heavily utilising the likes of Unreal Engine 5. We're talking about three main culprits. First, ultra-high resolution textures. As developers target 4K displays as standard, the texture files that give surfaces their detail have exploded in size. Second, and most importantly, is the growing adoption of path tracing or full ray tracing. This technique creates incredibly realistic lighting, but also requires the GPU to store a massive geometric map of the entire scene, called a bounding volume hierarchy, or BVH, directly in the VRAM for instant access. The more complex the scene, the bigger the BVH, and more VRAM is consumed before a single texture is even loaded. And then finally, new rendering techniques and even AI-driven features like DLSS frame generation add their own memory overhead. The result is an unprecedented demand for fast onboard graphic memory. At 1440p with maxed out textures, 12GB is already proven to be a bottleneck, and at 4K, 16GB is the absolute bare minimum for a stutter-free experience. And don't even get me started with the lower tier cards that came in with a paltry 8GB of VRAM. To fully cover that, I'd need, well, to make a whole different piece of content. Think of VRAM as a chef's countertop. Sounds weird, but stick with me. A GPU with lots of VRAM is a chef with a huge workspace, able to prep everything they need. Textures, shaders, that massive BVH structure, all for instant access. A GPU with insufficient VRAM is a chef with a kind of tiny chopping board, constantly forced to run to the pantry, your system RAM, or your freezer, your SSD, for ingredients. This fetching process creates delays, which I guess you experience as stuttering, hitching, and the immersion-breaking texture pop-in, where the world turns into a blurry mess for a split second as you turn around. No matter how fast your GPU's processor is, it can't fix a workspace that's just too small. A weird analogy, I know, but hopefully it paints a picture in your head at least. Now, this brings us to the RTX 50 series cards on shelves today. While the RTX 5090 is a beast, the more mainstream cards feel strategically almost cynically compromised. The RTX 5070's 12GB VRAM buffer is an immediate red flag for its long-term viability at 1440p. Even more telling is the RTX 5080. It launched with 16GB of VRAM on a 320-bit memory bus, and that bus width is key. The chip it's built on, the GB203, almost certainly has the physical capability for a full 384-bit bus. By disabling a portion of it, Nvidia not only creates clear market segmentation below the 5090, but it also leaves himself, I guess, a painfully obvious and easy upgrade path for the Super refresh. Simply re-enable the full bus width, add the corresponding VRAM, and well, yeah, it feels like less like a design choice for today's gamer and more like a deliberate segmentation choice for tomorrow's Super launch. And, well, this is where the Super refresh becomes a logical solution. And we saw this exact scenario play out with the RTX 4070 Ti. It was a powerful card, hobbled by a 192-bit bus and 12GB of VRAM. The Super fixed this by moving to a wider 256-bit bus and 16GB of VRAM, transforming it from a good 1440p card into a genuinely viable 4K contender. In all honesty, it does feel like history is about to repeat itself, and waiting is the only way to ensure you get the card that these chips were truly capable of being from the start. So what about the next wave of rumours? Well, with the lay of the land of the RTX 50 non-Super series now apparent after months on the market, the rumour mill is still churning with details on how the Super refresh will essentially fix the deliberate compromises that we've just discussed. These aren't just whispers, they are credible leaks that paint a very clear picture of Nvidia's mid-cycle strategy. I guess the card that everyone is watching, the RTX 5070 Super, is the prime example. It's heavily rumoured to be jumping from its current arguably inadequate 12GB configuration to a much healthier 16GB, or even, what sounds quite quirky, 18GB of GDDR7. Now that 18GB figure isn't just a random number, it points to a potential bus width increase from 192-bit to 288, a technical choice that makes perfect sense and lends the rumour a lot of credibility. This single change, powered by the immense bandwidth of GDDR7, would address the number one complaint about the card and vastly improve its longevity for high-texture 1440p gaming. Then, further up the stack, the RTX 5080 Super is rumoured to be the true enthusiast champion that many hoped the original would be. Remember that hobbled 320-bit bus that we talked about? Well, the leaks strongly suggest that the Super version will unlock the GB203's chip's full 384-bit bus, enabling a colossal 24GB of GDDR7. This is the final piece of the puzzle, transforming the card from a great GPU into, well, an absolute monster. It wouldn't just be raw performance uplifts from more cores, it would be a fundamental bandwidth and capacity upgrade, positioning it as a far more capable card for true, high refresh rate 4K gaming, and giving it the future-proofing needed for the next wave of demanding titles. Now, it is crucial to understand that this isn't just about bigger numbers on a spec sheet. When you combine these capacity and bandwidth upgrades with the expected 10 to 15% core count increase, you're looking at cards that offer a true generational leap over their non-super counterparts. For gamers, that means smoother frame times, turning a choppy 50 FPS into a locked 60 FPS, or making 120Hz gaming a stable reality. For content creators like ourselves, the extra VRAM and CUDA cores are also an absolute godsend, translating to faster render times in applications and dramatically smoother timeline scrubbing in high-resolution video projects. Something that, well, here we could definitely get behind. In terms of the expected timeline for this refresh, it's again been rumoured for an announcement around CES in January 2026, with a retail launch in Q1 or early Q2. Now, the timing here is perfect for Nvidia. It allows them to dominate the holiday season, satisfying the must-have-it-now crowd. Then they can reignite market hype in the typically slower post-holiday quarter with cards that offer demonstrably better value. This move, I guess, also serves as a strategic killing blow designed to squash any momentum from competitors' kind of mid-cycle product releases. Effectively, as I mentioned at the start, resetting the market in their favour once again. So let's bring it all home to the question that you're facing with that RTX 50 series card in your cart. Should you click buy? Well, to answer that, we need to take a look at different scenarios. Scenario 1, the emergency builder. Picture this, your graphics card just died. You need a PC now. In this case, you have to buy something. But paying top dollar for an RTX 5080 or 5070 Ti right now, in my opinion, is financial malpractice. Our advice, either buy a lower-end card like an RTX 5060 Ti to get you by, or even look for a discounted or used RTX 40 series card. Spending flagship money today, just months before it's superseded, is a guaranteed path to regret. So I want to save you that hurt. Scenario 2, the pragmatic upgrader. You're running a solid RTX 30 series or even a 40 series card. It works well, but you want that next-gen performance. For you, the answer is an emphatic do not buy yet. The jump from your current card to a 50 non-super series is an upgrade, but the jump to a 50 super will be the true meaningful leap in both performance and longevity. And we showed this at launch, where the 50 series just doesn't offer up enough of a stepping stone if you were already rocking a 40 series, or more importantly, 40 super series based GPU, unless you specifically wanted multi-frame generation. What I'm trying to say is to not take a half step forward when a full leap is kind of just round the corner. Then there's scenario 3, the high-resolution dreamer. You're building a new top-tier rig for uncompromised 4K gaming. The, let's call them vanilla RTX 50 series cards, are tempting, but they are somewhat compromised. The super cards, with their rumoured VRAM and memory bus upgrades, are the ones being designed to truly master the next generation of games at high resolutions. And your patience will be rewarded with the card that you actually want, and not the placeholder that's available today. So the advice across the board leans towards waiting, and it's all based on all of the evidence that we've laid out. We've seen NVIDIA's 2-act playbook time and time again, using the initial launch to set a high price anchor before resetting the market with a supercard built on more mature, capable silicon. We've looked at the VRAM wall being built by modern games and path tracing and seen how the current 50 series cards feel somewhat strategically hobbled, leaving crucial performance and longevity on the table. And finally, we've seen how the credible rumours for the Super lineup promise to fix these exact issues, offering not just more cores, but the vital VRAM and bandwidth upgrades that will unlock this generation's true potential. The lesson, I guess, that we can take away from NVIDIA's playbook is very clear. The card you think you want today will be made obsolete in terms of value in just a few short months. The real versions of these GPUs, the ones that offer the best balance of price, performance, and future-proofing, always arrive wearing the Super badge. Now, one piece of, advice, one huge piece of advice, and this obviously isn't for everyone, and I'm sure NVIDIA won't like us saying it, but don't pay the early adopter tax. Wait for the superior card instead. Though I'm sure we'll be saying something similar before the RTX 60 series launches, depending on the specs that are rumoured to be on the table. It's a fickle business looking at what ifs, and so much of it really comes down to actual timelines. If this was 6 months ago or even before that, I'd likely be saying something completely different. But as we edge closer to the potential Super series, the tables turn quite dramatically. Now, obviously, there is a caveat to all of this, and this comes down to if a deal can be had. We're heading directly into the busiest shopping season of the year, with Black Friday and Christmas just around the corner. While NVIDIA themselves are highly unlikely to officially slash the MSRP on the current cards, their AIB partners, the likes of Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, Inno3D, Zotac, PNY, and so forth, are under immense pressure. They know that the Super refresh is coming, and they need to clear their existing stock of vanilla RTX 50 series cards before that announcement, frankly, just devalues their inventory overnight. And, well, this creates a potential window for some truly aggressive inventory clearing sales. We're not talking about a token $20 or £20 off here and there. For buying now to be a fruitful decision, the discount would need to be substantial enough to fundamentally change the value equation. Think of a 20 or even 25% price drop that brings a 50 series card well below the projected price of its Super counterpart. A deal that deep could save you hundreds of dineros, potentially bridging the value gap enough that you won't feel that sting of buyer's remorse when the supercards eventually land. It's a gamble on a deep discount versus guaranteed future performance, but for the right price, it's a gamble that could, in theory, pay off. So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this look at the NVIDIA 50 series and the upcoming Super lineup. If you did, a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, we've got a Patreon where you can support what we do while getting access to some really cool extras too, including behind the scenes content, a super special area in our Discord, and much, much more. The link is, as always, down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.